Hi, I'm Phil Palucha from Billionaires in Boxers, and you are about to engage with Up Level Your Communication, hosted by Maluna. Wow, this is going to be powerful. Communication is at the heart of everything that is good about business and about sharing with your fellow humans, and Maluna is phenomenal at helping you share that message and also interview some pretty special and amazing guests too. Check it out right now.
Welcome to Up Level Your Communication. I'm your host, Dr. Miluna Bausch. On this show, I will be interviewing some of the most interesting business people in the world. We'll focus on up-leveling your communication and leadership skills so that your voice can be heard and you can make an impact in the world. This is Up-Level Your Communication. My guest today embodies what is wonderful about space and place and why we must learn from and preserve our country's history. He is President and CEO of Preservation Society of Charleston. Yes, I am a proud member. It's so much fun and brings so much meaning to be a member. His name is Brian Turner. Brian, I want to welcome you to the show. Would you briefly tell us who you are and what you say your role is as the leader of the Preservation Society of Charleston?
I'd be happy to, but first let me just say how grateful I am to be thought of, to be on the show. It's exciting to be here, and I'm always happy to talk about my work with the Preservation Society and the importance of preserving our past. So as the president and CEO, I direct one of the nation's oldest nonprofit advocacy organizations focusing on the cultural and historic environment in Charleston. And Preservation Society is a longtime pioneer in preservation. I act in my current role as our chief advocate and fundraiser, communications lead for the society, which we are, as you mentioned, a membership organization, and we represent about 5,000 members, and are pleased to bring the voice of those members to really make land use decisions of major consequence in the area, and also to make sure that we're celebrating our history and talking about it in the right way.
Wow. Charleston has a distinction of forming our nation's first preservation organization. Would you tell us a little bit about the amazing woman who started all of this in the city of Charleston?
Yeah, so Susan Pringle Frost is who you're referring to, and she's sort of the godmother of preservation in Charleston. Susan Pringle Frost was a very unique woman who was both a product of her time as an old Southern woman who was from a prominent family in Charleston, but she was also an advocate for voting rights for women, the suffrage movement in the 19-teens. And the story that I like to tell about Susan Pringle Frost is really how she leveraged her passion for women's participation in government and applied that to the preservation of the historic and cultural environment, which at the time in the late teens and early 1920s in Charleston was in dire need of repair. She really foresaw something and the importance of protecting this very unique architecture in Charleston. And in so doing, she created a movement that has now really progressed around the country and around the world in many ways in putting kind of the descriptor into what preservation is and what it means. And so I keep a photo of Susan Pringle Frost above my desk because her inspiration, I think, is really critical for a lot of reasons.
I love that you do that. A picture of the visionary to be with you, perhaps. That's beautiful.
Right.
Now, you have an important announcement, something big, B-I-G, all capitals. is launching on July 24th, 2024. So by the time this episode airs, it will have launched. Please share with us. It's so exciting. What is the significance of this product?
Yeah, well, thank you for asking about this. So what we're talking about is the resilience guidance for Charleston. Resilience is a word many people might wonder, well, what does that mean exactly? Resilience is a term of art to describe how we can protect our tangible history against the forces of nature, really, that threaten it, and how we can make our environment, our built environment, really compatible with the forces that threaten it. So in Charleston, that's really 4 key natural forces that every person who owns, manages, leases, or is involved in property in some way needs to be attentive to. That's flooding, heat, wind, and earthquakes. And what we've done in this document is work with some of the smartest people in the field, architects, engineers, planners, to really break down any given building into its site components and provide recommendations for resilient strategies for protecting those components. So whether it's your roof, your windows and doors, the landscape around your building, really we're launching a product that will exhibit best practices, innovative practices in sort of building science that will and break down those practices by cost, by degree of expertise, to really enable people to take action to help these homes and businesses last on into the future.
So important. And the more folks move to coastal areas, the more this affects us around the U.S. and the coast, and will benefit other countries as well, I'm sure. It's probably the first of its kind in this capacity, yes?
Yeah, that's right. The planning group that helped pull it together for us has told us they're not aware of any other product that's like this that exists. And so I think that it'll be really important for Charleston because it deals with our specific environment, but also as a template for similar products that can be developed in other specific conditions in other places. And so we're really excited. I mean, I think consistent with our role historically as a pioneer in preservation, it is appropriate for this type of product to come from Charleston.
Agree. The Preservation Society has some other key initiatives that you've rolled out over the last couple of years. Would you tell us about one or two that you love, think are, well, they're all important, but what would you like to highlight?
Yeah, well, the way I think of our work, I'll just say, we are thought of as an important line of defense with projects and plans that are moving through the review process. And that's something that we're always going to do. It's really the bread and butter of our work. People expect and they look to us to have an informed perspective on major land use decisions. But at the same time, while doing that, we want to think proactively about where are the gaps in information that is leading to the same issues being, coming up again and again. Where I would probably take your question is one thing that I saw in moving to Charleston, because I'm not a Charlestonian by birth. I recognize that one unique component of our environment here is the cemetery protection. So cemeteries and the underground environment broadly in Charleston has not been has not had as much focus as some of the more tangible built environment issues. And years on, I think that has had some consequences where there are a number of burial grounds and cemeteries that are sort of erased. They don't have a tangible presence on the landscape. So we want to and we're using technology and community input to bring some life back into these sites to make sure that the city's planners know their existence, to make sure that descendants can have access to them. And it's been a very rewarding process, not just because we're doing something to map and highlight where things are, but because we're having conversations that involve people from different walks of life who may not just live in a classic historic home in the historic district, but are really invested in sort of the legacy of Charleston's history in a very personal way with their families. And cemeteries can bring out a lot of that kind of sense of ownership and sense of place. And so we've learned a lot through that work, and it's been really rewarding, and we intend to continue.
I also like the historical markers. I get the biggest kick out of walking this city, specifically downtown, and seeing these markers.
Yeah.
Attempting to connect the dots historically. What does this mean? It's quite wonderful to see that.
Yeah. Well, can I just say, markers, also when I came, we noticed there were a lot of markers around the city. The Preservation Society has provided that service for 70 years or more, but we never had a way of tracking what's out there. And so actually staff have just recently done a complete inventory of our markers. They've taken pictures of every single one that's out in Charleston. There's over 150 of them. And we put them on a digital map, so anybody throughout the country, really throughout the world, can go and search and read some of these stories, see where they are, and better understand what's significant, the story behind the building, which there always are so many of them. And that's been a really exciting product. It also helps us kind of identify gaps. What are the histories that we've done a good job illuminating? And what are the stories that we want to do a better job, so we can direct our future markers in the right way?
That's huge. I love that. Now we understand, and now there's a body of work around it. Wow.
Right.
Now, I understand you're an architect. You are an attorney, specifically in the area of public policy and land use. How has your background and training informed your calling? What I call your calling. I'm thinking this is your calling. Am I right? Maybe that's my first question.
It is my calling. I did not know it would be my calling. I went to law school over 20 years ago with an interest in the environment, interest in sort of connecting small businesses and sort of grassroots scale economies in local farming and food agriculture issues was my background going into law school. And I was also a history major, just very interested in history. I found preservation. I found the National Trust as an internship in Washington, D.C., and I found that preservation was a perfect blending of my skill sets and my interests. I hadn't known it existed as a profession at the time, and I realized that I could accomplish two things at once. My passion for history and illuminating the stories of the past and why they're important for us to continue, but also in the context of sort of environmental law, with this adopting a conservation mentality and thinking about the tools that the local, state, and the federal government can use to help put some core protections around resources of significance. And also enabling people who are owners of property to access, whether it's incentives or the public process, to do the same. And so really, I developed a niche expertise in historic preservation law, and just went from there. I practiced with the National Trust for 12 years out west before moving to Charleston and assuming the role of a director of advocacy with the Preservation Society, and then becoming the president and CEO. And so it's been a great journey, and it truly is my calling. Mm-hmm.
I love it. And who called you to come to Charleston? Was it the board of directors, or how did that happen where you contemplated the city of Charleston?
Yeah, well, Charleston has a reputation nationally in preservation as a leader. What was very persuasive about moving here and making the move with my family was the fact that our organization had just celebrated its 100th birthday, and they engaged in a capital campaign. And what was, I think, the preservation historically sort of a fairly scrappy organization without a strong budget, was able to raise over $6 million to advance preservation for the next century. And I have to say, and looking at the position and thinking about Charleston, this was in the middle of COVID. It was a big move for us, but it was very clear to me just how incredible this organization was, from the board to the staff to the mission. Another thing about preservation is that what I like to say is that if you're ever looking to get connected to a community, find the preservationists, because those are the ones who are exhibiting care in a genuine, passionate way. And so immediately I felt like I was able to come here, and I felt welcomed. I felt like my family was welcomed, and truly the hospitality in this city is incredible. And so it is absolutely a privilege to be able to do this job here.
We are known for our hospitality here, and I'm not a native either. That's really one of the reasons I say this was a heart move for us.
Yeah,
it was a heart move
right.
to Charleston. Now, I'm fascinated by the black iron gates of Charleston, and that's a unique history and story, isn't it? Would you tell us a little bit about the significance of the black gates?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, ironwork. So the Charleston is really known for its traditions of craftsmanship, and that's not only in its ironwork and blacksmithing, but also in masonry and plastering, and some of these elements of building histories and components that have survived generations. And so the traditions of craftsmanship in sort of the ironwork really stemmed from, the earliest days, I think, of the Carolina colonies, and of course the enslaved who were here were employed in this way, and then what has sort of emerged after in the postbellum period were these methods and these practices being kept up here in a way that I think was unusual relative to other American cities. I mean, certainly to take nothing away from other cities like New Orleans or Galveston, who have beautiful, elaborate traditions of craftsmanship, Charleston had its own unique, not only way of employing, ironwork for these decorative elements, but also in sustaining those traditions through time, through families. Philip Simmons was a very well-known craftsman in the 50s, 60s, 70s, whose work is exhibited in the Smithsonian, and you can still go around and see his gates around town. And so it is certainly an attraction to people. But I'd also mention that it's these are practices that are being kept up by places like the American College of Building Arts and others who are training the next generation as well.
I love it. And that is on my list, to attend one of the open houses at the American College of the Building Arts, which is teaching, as you said, blacksmithing and the plaster work and the restoration that is so unique to Charleston. Now, I want to give a shout out to some of the events around the Preservation Society. The fall tours are coming up. Yes, it is rapidly approaching yet another year, and they are extraordinary. Those of you who are local and will be flying in to visit our city, you'll want to book early because these tours sell out. And for all of you like me who are curious, looking beyond those iron gates and those beautiful front doors, wanting to see inside those properties, this is your opportunity to do so. Also, the Society has an amazing shop at 147 King Street, chock full of beautiful, locally made goods. Is there anything else that we should speak about? Any final wrap-up words about just the beauty and significance of maintaining and preserving this city and also growing and expanding?
Yeah, well, I'll just pick up on what you mentioned about our events, whether it's our tours or our annual meetings. We're doing a couple things. One, we want to push the boundaries of preservation a bit, and we value sort of a diversity in thought about different issues, and we don't all come from the same perspective. And I think it's often thought in preservation that everybody sort of thinks the same way. Actually, it's really an incubator for how we deal with land, moving forward. And so that, I think, good and robust community engagement is really important for having that dialogue. It's also important because the Preservation Society is a grassroots membership organization. We're really governed through our members. Our members elect our board, and we're true to kind of those grassroots origins that we were founded on in 1920, and we lean on it. So I think that we're a place where people can meet in the middle. And I think that's really important when we're looking for that today. And it's just such a pleasure to be able to be in the center of that and to facilitate great interactions between you and other members and people from all walks of life, really, who kind of find themselves interested in the intersection of history and land use and the environment. And come find us, please, if you're visiting or if you're from here. Come find us. We're pretty accessible. So thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. You're very accessible. And it is a friendly organization. You do not have to live in Charleston to be a member here. That's the other thing. You can support from afar and visit a couple times a year or something. So, Brian, how do we find the Preservation Society and or connect with you? How can we reach out and be in connection?
Yeah, well, preservationsociety.org. We're on social media channels. We're for the physical. Our shop is at 147 King Street, the intersection of King and Queen, right downtown. It's a beautiful part of town. You can't miss us. But the most accessible point of entry is through our shop. Our offices are right above. But yeah, we are a membership organization. Our member rates start at $50 for an individual, $100 for a family. That gets you a whole host of things, whether it's a shop discount, our emails, 2 publications a year, access to our events, and exclusive tours and things. And so we're out there, and we intend to stay very much engaged in the key issues facing Charleston as an advocacy organization first. And so you will also see us in the media, and you will see us making informed opinion on issues that are really important. So
fantastic. Brian, thank you so much for sharing your dedication, your calling. It's such a beautiful position and just an organization that really, really is making a difference.
I really appreciate your enthusiasm, and thank you again for having me.
It's my pleasure. And to our audience, thank you for being here with us. Don't forget to subscribe and stay tuned for the next edition of Up-Level Your Communication. We'll say bye for now.
Bye, everyone.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to share our show with the key leadership at your company and with your friends. If you know in your heart that you're ready to uplevel your speaking, stage presence, and impact, visit milunafausch.com to schedule a complimentary call. You can also purchase my book and our podcast music, Strong Body.
Thank you for enjoying this content by Billionaires in Boxes. If you would like to be a guest or a host, be sure to get in contact with us at billionairesinboxes.com.